tell us about your TVs and maybe show us one that you feel comfortable showing, and we'll check it out.
Okay. So I had mentioned earlier that we had started with about 4 TVs on the sales side. On the sales side right now, I think we're at about 12 TVs. So we actually have about 8 overhead TVs. We have an additional 2 TVs up in the front that are on one wall that give us kind of a summary screens. And then we have, some screens around that are, we call them company screens. So
you actually had some, being a web developer back in the day, I learned some stuff from you. You had like local weather, like a custom countdown clock. That was pretty cool. Like I learned that from you. I didn't even know that existed. So sorry to cut you off, but I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah. So I'll show you real quick. This is our company count, one of our company screens. So the way this was set up is that we have 2 large TVs on either side of our office. Our office is physically split in half because we have a production team that actually assists our sales team as well. But obviously we keep them separate from the sales team just for a noise benefit. But we do like to share the information back and forth. So for these screens, it was a lot more generic information, a lot more company information. So in this case, these slides are all set up, and because of the large amount of options you have when it comes now to setting up a board, I mean, from setting up just the metric leaderboards, but also adding in the multimedia, the challenges, or any specific messages on there. So you can see that one of the first slides that we have is the funding days remaining. And for us, obviously, as most businesses are, the month is important to us, is that at the end of the month, we're usually a lot busier. And when it comes to the end of the month, there's goals associated with that. It gets busy, there's challenges. So we like to keep update of, when it is, when that date, the month end is coming. So for us, it was very important to get that up. And let me see if I can pull it up real quick without going too crazy.
17.
Yeah, so you can see here, it says 17 monthly funding days remaining. So there's obviously a countdown there. This is all, again, my web background coding. We had it code so that it's taking out non-business days, so we don't get too mixed up there.
But that's easy. That's like a web page anybody can go to and just say, hey, show me business days left this month, right? Like anybody could plug in that URL and it'll just show right here on the screen, won't it?
Oh, yes. Yeah, that is it's a custom URL that we have on our web server. So it's ours, but there's nothing stopping somebody else from using it. It's not really sensitive information. It was just a quick means to an end just to get those monthly funding days. But yeah, occasionally we do monthly, we do daily, the sales team does daily huddles where they meet, and then we do company huddles every now and then, but that's always a number that everyone always points out to, is just to remind everybody how many days are left. So we know, that the end is coming, we need to focus, and we need to get those deals done. The next slide I don't want to go into, but is the funding goal, and that's just simply tracking that goal. So we have our goals that we send out for the year to, our yearly funding goals for a company. And that's basically just going to look at that funding dollar amount that we do, and just tracking that over time and then the year. And then it gives you a nice graph of how we're progressing towards that goal and see what kind of trending we are having. And then you can see how some months are a lot busier than others.
Right.
So it's nice to put it on that company screen. So again, both sides can revel in, how we're doing as a company. Some of the other things that I found were really neat to put on to the company one is quotes. Is that occasionally, the company is run from, we had done recently was Delivering Happiness, which is a motivational session that they had come from almost a few days. The entire company was involved. They're doing very motivational stuff, very positive stuff that we're going through. And with that comes a lot of quotes that came across that we wanted to show off, if a particular sales agent or one of the employees here has a quote that they like, they usually send it into the IT team, and we'll occasionally feature them on these screens. So we'll swap out these quotes. You can see here we have 2 of them. We go back and forth, and we kind of, pass around just to see and change them up every now and then to show everybody what's going on with the with people's interests and if there's any interesting quotes that they found.
That's awesome.
One of the next things I'll show you on here is that we actually, with that Delivering Happiness team, one of the things we had established was that we wanted to find a way to highlight any employees that do a great job internally if they had done something that was spectacular, if they'd done something that would not just do their job, but do their job exceptionally well, or do something that was very nice for somebody else. And what we do is we hand out these wow cards, these cards that just tell someone that you acknowledge or something that you did, and they include a personalized note of what had happened. But that recognition is then emailed. The entire company knows about it. But we do have contests every month where everyone that had gotten the wow cards, they pool together and we do a raffle, and whoever wins that raffle, it becomes the wow ambassador for the month, and they get featured. So whenever a rep is featured, we take their picture.
Nice.
So you can hear that we always throw their picture in there, and that's obviously utilizing the multimedia tab on the screen. So you can see there that's one of our business development reps who had won the wow ambassador for May.
This is one of the cool culture things you all do. It doesn't have to just be metrics or funding. Like, show weather, show wow reports, show quotes. I think that's great, and I think you guys have some of the better TVs I've seen, on a sales floor. So yeah, sorry to cut you off. That wow thing's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, and then we have again, I was talking about you had mentioned the weather. Is that everyone is always constantly, granted we have a lot of windows here, but everyone's very curious about what's going on with the day. One of the websites I like to use all the time is Dark Sky, and they use forecast.io, I believe, is their back end. But it gives you a nice timeline of the day and then a map of the U.S. to give you, a good idea of what's going on. So that was just as simple as loading in our address, into the, their website, and then taking the resulting URL and putting it in a multimedia window.
They're literally saying, all right, call this weather, copy paste this web link, put it in this ambition screen. And at all times, when this rotation comes in, we're showing your weather for as long as you want to see. Pretty easy.
Yep.
And I've never seen that done other than your office. So I think we put that in the best practice playbook because of you guys. Is like, hey, here's the funding days days left this month. Here's a weather thing. I learned a lot on that trip. So that was all you, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's going through those, and you can see here, if I'll pull up real quick that weather slide, you can see here that it's pulling in basically the coordinates of our office.
Oh, that's cool.
In their URL, and then that allows us to display in that slide whatever we wanted to show. And then we obviously put timings and stuff like that on those different boards. And now, along with those boards, we do have some other ones here. I'll show you just real quick, just going through them. You can see here that our sales one, we have the new sales AE, new sales RDE, and then you have a new sales AE summary and a new sales RDE summary. And then there's the WT is with trigger and the WOT is without trigger. So this was a combination that was kind of an out of necessity, is that we have our office here, but we have many TVs, about 12 of them on the sales side, and we also have remote offices. So we have an office that we actually have in Florida, and we had one in South Carolina as well. But those offices were set up, but in some cases, in some scenarios, we wouldn't want triggers going off on those TVs. So our setups for our TVs here, we do use Mac Minis as the client. We had used, at one point, we had tried using Chromebits as well for some TVs. It just, we kind of changed back and forth. So in a lot of cases, we'll have a Mac Mini that's presenting two different ambition boards, and it's setting out to an HDMI splitter that's setting it out to a few different TVs throughout the building. So when we have on the sales side, the TVs that are hanging from the ceiling, they're all showing the new sales AE for the AE side and new sales RD for the RD side. So it's split 50-50, 4 TVs on each side that are showing up for those groups. So that's, the room is split, so it makes sense the TVs are split.